Assalamu alaikum Wolverhampton and welcome to FYI. This is your go-to source for community empowerment and information here on Radio Ramadan Wolves. I'm your host Alvina Ali, and today we have a very special guest joining us in the studio. So can we please give him a warm welcome to Andy Stevens from LEAP, who is a home energy advisor for the Midlands region. Now, Andy is also one of the directors of Smart NRG Limited, a company that works closely with LEAP to provide energy-saving solutions to households across the West Midlands. So let's dive into the conversation and learn more about how LEAP is helping to tackle fuel poverty and empower our community. Now, remember, if you have any questions about the topic being discussed, please dial into our hotline on 01902 972 150, or as always, you can send us a text message on 07 440 420 432. So, like I says, today Andy will be sharing some information about the important work that he is doing with LEAP and Smart NRG Limited to support households in need across the West Midlands. So, Andy, thank you for being here today.
Hi, Alvina. Yeah,
Hi.
thank you.
Can you, first of all, start off by telling us about your role in delivering energy advice and your relationship with LEAP as well?
Yeah, sure. So, our company, which I'm a director of, Smart NRG, have been partners with the LEAP and Agility campaign for going back about 7 years now. We've been delivering home visits across the West Midlands, primarily looking to help people who are vulnerable or low-income households, people who are struggling with primarily energy bills in some way or another. So yeah, we're conducting ideally a home visit in the property. We'll visit the person in the home, and we'll literally be looking from everything from the loft insulation levels right down through the property to the kind of heating controls, how the boiler works, how to best set up the boiler, the controls for the summer, controls for the winter usage. The whole heating system really is obviously what we want to be looking at. We're also offering tips and advice within the home, easy ways people can save money on their energy. While we're in the property, we're always looking things that are left on standby, which is quite a common, easy way to save money.
Yeah.
Over usage in certain appliances. We're also looking at installing some nice, simple, easy measures for residents. So things like radiator reflective panels for radiators that are on external walls.
Yeah.
Obviously, you're losing a lot of heat from those radiators to the fabric of the property. So we look to put those behind the radiators, and they reflect the heat back into the rooms that they wish. LED light bulbs, everybody's seeing them now. I would have thought they're very expensive to buy. We're allowed to install up to 10 per property if they're required. If they've already got LED, that's fine.
Yeah.
But if they need them, we'll fit them for them. Draft proofing, so tape that we can put around the frame of the door if there's gaps on the doors. We've got energy saver sockets, which are proving quite popular at the moment. So sockets that can go behind things like tellies that are notoriously left on standby, the little red light that's always on. It's obviously costing money.
Yeah.
So obviously what we're going to do is enable the resident to switch that off evenings or whenever they want to. So installing those is kind of proving quite good. Chimney balloons, we're coming across quite a few of these lately where old chimney flues that are open flyers that are no longer in use. So we put a chimney balloon up into the chimney breast. Horrible job. You've got to blow it up, blow it up by mouth, but basically it fills the gap and stops the drafts through the winter. Yeah, so lots of things like that. We've also got access to lots of different funding streams.
Yeah.
Which we'll probably go through.
Yeah, of course.
Yeah.
So it's great to see that you are committed to helping the households of Wolverhampton with basically to improve energy efficiency measures, hoping that they could reduce their bills as well. And also our main concern for Wolverhampton is obviously to alleviate fuel poverty as well.
Yes.
So you've talked about all the measures and everything that you put in. Now, these measures, how can the residents of Wolverhampton be supported? Can you give us some examples of where?
It's quite easy to kind of access the LEAP visits. So I mean, we're pretty much looking for residents on any sort of means tested benefit. Or any sort of disability benefit, or it could easily be just a household income less than 31,000. That would be enough to trigger a home visit from ourselves. If that answers your question.
Yeah, it does. So again, I think it's fantastic what you're doing for people in Wolverhampton. I just want to sort of dig that bit deeper into how the LEAP energy advice works. So can you sort of give me an example of a LEAP energy advice call? Say, for example, I'm a resident of Wolverhampton. I call you up and I say, look, I need some help to make my home a bit warmer over the winter period. Am I lacking any insulation? How can you help a resident?
Yeah, so the initial trigger, really, you can either apply online, which is simple, www.applyforleap.org.uk, and you can actually just fill in a self-referral form. Aside from that, you can either call the telephone number, which I'll give you in a second because it's gone out my head,
no worries.
or you can apply online through to Smart NRG as well. We can help you directly, so that's www.smartnrglimited.co.uk. As soon as we've submitted the referral, you'll get a call, normally within 7 to 10 days. You'll go through an initial triage call, so we'll find out on the phone exactly what your requirements are, what you need, what we can help you with. It may be that you don't need a home visit, and you can be dealt with just over the phone. So basically, we'll work out in that triage what's the best option for you, and then basically within that time, it probably take another week or so just to get you booked in for a home visit. It's quite a quick turnaround. But obviously, it gets busier through the winter months. So we have to prepare people that may be waiting 4 weeks, sometimes for a visit. But when we get there, the visit will take roughly about 2 hours. Like I say, we are checking everything: insulation depths. Is the loft adequately insulated? Are the walls insulated? Are there any grants available for you? Obviously, if it's a council property, that differs from if you're a homeowner.
Of course, yes.
We're quite up to date with different eco schemes. So if you need assistance from the energy companies, we can help you access grants for that area. So obviously, while we're in the property, we're looking at all sorts. So debt issues. Is the resident got any energy debt that they need any assistance with? Obviously, we know from the last bout of increases last winter, a lot of people have fallen into arrears, but their income cannot afford to pay that debt off now. So we might need to trigger things like trust fund applications to try and alleviate that stress from the debt. So obviously, once we're in there, it's easier when you're face to face to somebody.
Of course,
because,
it is.
we need to find out. Every house is different. Everybody's needs are going to be different. We might just go into a property and they just need the easy measures fitting. That's fine. But normally, I'd say 90% of the time, we're able to help with a lot more things while we're in there.
Brilliant. So it's quite a personalised service then to the resident. Again, like you says, every property is different, size-wise, and it depends obviously what sort of construction type and what sort of build it is. Yes, the age. That's right. Yes, the age. So, what type of questions will you typically ask about a property during your LEAP energy advice visit?
So, believe it or not, I mean, basically, it's obviously because we cover such a lot of areas while we're in the property. I would probably say the most time is spent on heating and controls. Because what we found over the last 5-7 years of doing this, a lot of people have no idea how to use the heating properly or the controls. So it is something we can spend quite a bit of time on. Obviously summer usage is going to be different to winter usage. Now tourists will go in the property and the it's all set up the same from one season to another. So obviously they need to adjust that. They can change the boiler settings. So we'll show them how to do that. Obviously express the importance of bleeding radiators when the time comes. The heating controls, the self-thermostat, how it's located. It's a common issue where people have got the thermostats located in the wrong place. So obviously we'll advise on that. Thermostatic valves, have the radiators been messed with in any way? Are they missing on the radiators? Do they need new ones? But it's stuff that a normal resident wouldn't notice straight away. Unless it's been highlighted to them. So going through the full heating system is probably the most time that's spent, and debt issues as well now.
Right. Okay. I know the big one is damp, mold, and condensation.
Absolutely.
Sort of what sort of what have you actually found through any visits? Have you come across properties that have damp, mold, condensation, and how can we advise our listeners what to look out for, and what recommendations would you put forward?
So with regard to that area, it is definitely a problem that has got worse over the last 2 years with all the price hikes with the energy. People are using the heating less. So obviously if you use your heating less, or you shut off certain radiators, that makes those rooms colder. So any condensation that's built up internally, whether from kitchens or from bathrooms, is obviously going to be attracted to those colder spots or rooms in the house. So obviously, simple things like we go into a lot of properties and they might have the bathroom window open, which is the right thing to do after you've used it. But a lot of people forget to close the door. So what will happen is you'll end up with a room that's directly opposite the bathroom that's suffering with damp and mould. And the resident can't understand why that is, because we always open the windows. But obviously if you're not shutting the door to the bathroom, all the window will do is it'll just blow the condensation directly into the room opposite, and then you'll end up with the issue in the room there. So it's important to keep bathroom doors closed, windows open as much as possible. It's advisable to open all the windows and all the doors if you can for a good half an hour a day, just to let the house breathe.
Sorry, go on.
I was just going to say, we've just started, people who have got an issue with moisture in the property, we've just started to provide hygrometers, which are a moisture monitor, so we can put those in the property. If it hits like the 60% mark moisture, obviously the resident knows they need to open windows, they need to open and air the property.
So, with all these measures that you've talked about, like loft insulation, draft proofing, these monitors as well, is there a cost to the resident at all?
It's completely free.
Free service.
Obviously, the triggers for us are low-income households, so household income less than 31,000, or any sort of means-tested benefit, or any sort of disability benefit. So it's fairly loose.
Brilliant. Okay, so great advice there. And again, I would say to the residents to get their calls in. Now, talking about calls, how would you decide on the eligibility? I know you says obviously it's got to be means tested for the energy support work that you offer. And how can someone book an energy advice call with Leap?
So obviously I'll provide you with the telephone number to put up online in a bit. But basically we've got obviously you've got the link that you could put to trigger your interest. What happens after you've filled the online form in? Just name, address, telephone number. You'll get a call back within that period, and all that is triggered there. It'll just be booked in for a home visit at that point.
Brilliant.
But it's very important that the resident kind of, if they've got any issues, please flag them up on that initial call, because it's a lot easier for us as home energy advisors to go into the property knowing that we've got to spend some time on a certain subject. So it they might have broken appliances. So I've just been to a property and a broken cooker. So obviously because it's a broken appliance, obviously there's a good chance we're going to be able to help with that, and we can improve the efficiency by putting a new one in, take the old one away, and we'll put a new one in. So that's another funding stream that people do like the idea of.
I like the idea of that as well. So thank you for explaining that process, Andy. So can you share any examples of homes that you've been able to support through Leap, and obviously through the call service or through online when people register with you?
Yeah, I mean, it's an abundance. I mean, basically, we come across like kind of all sorts of situations. I mean, some of the things that we have been able to do through the winter months specifically is help with like fuel vouchers. So
Okay,
obviously, on the run up to Christmas, obviously it's a tight time, especially for like the single parent families, as on a whole, it's a tough time. So yeah, we've been able to help with £150 worth of fuel vouchers in the past, which has been good, a real kind of blessing. We've had so many messages thanking us for that. It's lovely. Heated blankets for elderly, vulnerable people.
Yeah.
At the same kind of period. Last year was unbelievable how many properties we went in, and they were stone cold, and it was elderly resident. They just wrapped up because obviously they're scared to put the heating on.
True. Yeah.
So obviously helping out with things like that. Emergency boiler assistance. So obviously, we'll come across on through the winter months a lot of people who put the boiler on first time for the winter and the boiler's not working. There is a criteria to this, but basically I do urge people to check that online. But yeah, if they've got a broken boiler and they fit the criteria and the eligibility, we can help sometimes to either fix or replace that boiler. And that is a very fast turnaround as well because it's emergency funding.
Right.
Yeah, so yeah. Also hazard referrals. So we've got good relations with all the councils across the West Midlands. Anything we come across like damp or mould or electrical hazards or something that's just generally not safe for the resident, we've got the ability to refer things like that back into the councils and associations to kind of trigger a home visit from them to help with those areas. Yeah, so. Yeah, honestly, I could spend all day on that. We've come across so many situations where we've helped people, and it's really heartwarming when you get the feedback as well. I mean, people are lovely these days. They do actually take the time to feed back into Leap, and that message gets back to us. It's nice.
That's good. So I know, obviously, because we're Wolverhampton based, our main interest is helping people in Wolverhampton.
Yep.
But for those of our listeners who are actually listening from maybe Telford, Birmingham, Dudley, and we do get worldwide listeners as well. I'm not expecting you to do a call.
No, not yet.
So would you support other people living in other boundaries as well?
Of course. Yeah. I mean, obviously, Smart NRG, we will cover pretty much all of the West Midlands. We also cover some of the East Midlands as well now, so like kind of Nottingham, Coventry,
excellent,
Derby way. So yeah, it's we're pretty wide coverage now, but it's not just that's just our business. But basically, there's Leap itself. We've got a much coverage, pretty much national now. If we can't help with a home visit because it might be too rural, we can always organise a telephone advice call. That's not a problem.
Okay, that's lovely. Now, Andy, in addition to the Pacific support that you provide through Leap, can you share some general energy advice tips for our listeners as well? So what are some of the more common energy efficiency issues that you've noticed in the community?
Yeah, so obviously I've mentioned a couple briefly already, but location of thermostat is very, very common issue. Obviously you don't want a thermostat above a radiator, above a fire. I know it sounds obvious, but we see it.
Yeah.
Obviously you want to keep your thermostat in probably the coldest room in the house, which is normally your hallway.
Okay,
yeah,
right.
Obviously doors opening and closing all the time. Boiler flow temperatures. So everybody's probably seen or heard people saying 60 degrees. 60 degrees, obviously that's an optimal kind of temperature during the winter months. It's not overdoing it. Your boiler's not working too hard. Kills kind of bacteria and things like that. 60 degrees, So basically, it's a good kind of temperature to have your boiler set at during the winter months. But obviously that they can go down. A lot of people have got the boilers for the tap water set too high during the summer. And they're scalding their hands. So obviously, showing people how to turn the boilers down is important. Obviously, I mentioned about bathroom doors being closed and damp and mold issues. Why people are getting those issues. So obviously, you might have thought it's an internal problem, but sometimes if you look around the property, you can spot things that might be external. So there might be guttering that's blocked, and obviously because you don't go outside and look at your guttering when it's raining, you're
Yeah,
not going to notice it. So basically,
Yeah.
but you can see staining on the walls
Yes.
where it
Yeah.
might be running down. You might have had some building work go on or something that's been pushed up against the building, the property, and that may be above the damp proof course. So what can happen now is that could be an access point for water to get into the property
Yeah.
at lower level. So it could be all sorts of issues like that. Yeah, and obviously the main things in the house is anything just being left on standby. We're in a world where everything's electrical now.
Yes.
You can't buy anything unless you're plugged in, can you? So it's basically the kids have got Xboxes, PlayStations. Everything's just, when we go into a property, everything's just on. So basically, by the time we leave, a lot of those are off, and people are saving money.
Yeah. Definitely good tips there. So we talked about the thermostat. So obviously to help our residents save energy and money off their bills, what would you say is the correct temperature to put on a thermostat?
So this is
to control your heating.
Yeah, this is a difficult one because this is very much a personal thing. So basically, you've got to. This is why a home visit's so important, in my opinion, because your property won't be running the same as my property, and it depends what the customer's needs are. So we do sit down for about 15 minutes before we go around the property, and we'll find out what the customer's needs are, how they operate things, what they like to have on, where are they in the property through the day. It's basically, if they're shut into one room, that's going to be different to somebody who's all over the house. So,
yes, of course.
But I mean, in general, my thermostat pretty much stays on about 16.5, 17 all the time. I don't actually turn my heating off. Obviously, it's not going to come on if it's warmer.
Yes.
In the winter, my property will generally fall to about 16 degrees if it's just left off. So I have it half a degree above that. So it'll just keep it nice and just kind of mild, really. But every house is different.
Yeah, of course. I was going to say that. So don't take our word for it that you've got to put your temperatures at 16 degrees.
See, I mean, you've got an elderly resident who's in the property all day.
Yeah.
They're probably going to want it on kind of 19 in the day, maybe jump it up to 21 during the evenings. So, but where we see a lot of issues is people have got the old dial thermostats.
Yes.
And what they'll do is when they're too hot, they'll just turn it completely to 0.
Yes, they will, yeah.
And then when they want it on, they turn it up to 30. It's completely the wrong way of doing things. They're just going to waste so much gas. Your boiler is not going to get your property to 30 degrees in that space of time, maybe like 2 hours. So you're just going to waste a load of gas trying to get there. So we try and encourage like kind of medium temperatures, sensible, never above 21, not really below 16, really. Is kind of good, comfortable temperatures.
All right, excellent. Great tips there as well. Also, can you explain some of the main types of energy measures and how they work? Now, what I'm talking about is something like loft insulation, wall insulation. People don't understand the idea of insulation. And maybe we could go into renewable technology. I don't know whether you do anything with regards to solar PV,
Little bits.
heat pumps, little bits. Okay, so it might be useful because I know loads of people now are looking at options of having solar PV panels put on their roof. So it might be useful to know about some of these larger energy measures.
I mean, it's more that kind of area is more for off-gas, rural kind of, areas, or somebody just on all electric properties. There is funding around for converting to like kind of air source heat pumps. Solar technology can be put on with a renewable heating source, so it's I mean the options are there. Regarding, what was the other stuff you mentioned? Insulation.
I think the wall insulation and cavity wall, and if you could explain the difference between cavity wall insulation and external wall insulation.
Yeah. So obviously we've seen a lot more of the external wall insulation now going on kind of inner city areas. The old solid brick properties. So that's people without a cavity in between the bricks. So depending on obviously qualification criteria, the current EPC rating, there's a great scheme called Eco4, and basically what that enables people to do is have bigger measures fitted,
Mm-hmm.
as long as an EPC can be improved by 2 bandings.
Okay.
Bigger measures can be installed.
Mm-hmm.
So things like external wall insulation, that goes on the outside, obviously.
Mm-hmm.
It's the foam blocks, which you'll see, I've seen probably going onto buildings.
Yeah.
And then they render over the top of it, make it a hard surface. You can also apply now for internal wall insulation, which is a good option. You know, some people can't have external wall insulation because it might be encroaching onto highways. The property might be straight onto the pavement, things like that. So internal wall insulation might be a better option.
Yeah.
Installers, I'm sure, some of them will prefer that because it is a cheaper option as well. Obviously, loft insulation, as we mentioned, there's a huge amount of savings to be made by having loft insulation, either put in or just topped up to the adequate amount. So 300 millimetres is the current regulation for loft insulation. But there's huge savings because hot air rises. So if you haven't got it adequately insulated, you're going to lose all your heat.
Of course you are.
It's a constant cycle. You want to keep that heat down in the property.
So just for our listeners' benefit then, what are the signs that a house is inefficient besides high bills? You've talked about loft insulation, that if you haven't got adequate amount, that you could lose heat through the roof. What are other signs?
So, I mean, obviously, you've mentioned the first thing. The obvious thing is the bills. You know, but basically, if somebody's saying, upstairs never gets warm, you know, which it's pretty much an idea that if the upstairs is not getting warm, you know that the heat is just going straight through the loft, and then potentially losing the heat upstairs. You know, if somebody says it's really hot all the while upstairs, it's a good sign that you're probably adequately insulated, you know. But I mean, obviously, people who are in debt, people with kind of damp and mold issues. You know, if you've got like a property that's got a cavity but it's not filled, and somebody's not using the heating as they should be, you know, and heating all rooms averagely, that could be a kind of trigger for damp and mold to settle on the walls. So we're looking at all sorts of things, you know. So I mean, it's but obviously, to spot if a property's been insulated, we do that on our survey anyway. So if it's not been insulated and we think it should be, or it could be, we will put them forward for grants. LEAP can actually help directly with loft and cavity wall insulation grants. So it is something we are interested in kind of identifying.
Okay, lovely. I'm going to go into some of the questions that are coming in, if that's all right, Andy. So let's address some of these questions then from our listeners. Andy, our first question comes from Fatima in Wolverhampton.
Okay.
She's asking, what are some of the more common energy efficiency issues you've noticed in the community?
I mean, I've mentioned this now, but basically people not heating the properties as much as they should have done through the winter months, not airing the properties as much as they should do. It's so important, especially now people have had insulation put into the properties. Most people have had cavity wall insulation who could have it. But basically, those kind of things are obviously causing bigger issues, you know, if it's not adequately insulated.
Right. Okay. Thanks for that, Andy. Now, our next question comes from Ali in Dudley, who asks, can you explain some of the main types of large energy measures? I think we've already spoke about that. And how they work, such as loft insulation, wall insulation. So, I think we have answered that question, and they might have missed it.
It's worth mentioning, actually. Because I haven't mentioned this. We've got a great new funding stream for homeowners who've got they might have a perfectly working boiler. The boiler's in good working condition, but the heating system may not be in good working condition. So you might have radiators that are leaking, radiators that are not heating up properly, radiators with missing thermostatic valves. You might have rooms that are missing radiators that need one. Controls, missing controls, no thermostat or broken thermostat. we've got some funding now. Obviously, to an eligibility criteria, which is the same, which is means tested benefit or income less than 31,000. We potentially can put them through for heating tune-up funding.
Okay.
And that would cover a kind of power flush, adding new thermostatic valves to the radiators, adding smart controls for the boiler, just a general tune-up of the whole system, just making sure it's really ready for the winter months, yeah.
Excellent, good. Ahmed's asking, what can I do to quickly save energy at home? Are there any easy, low-budget energy efficiency tips that you can share?
Yes, I mean, there's so many. So basically, things like washing machines. Obviously, all your washing machines now are tend to be just cold feed. So it's cold water coming in. You've got it's electrically heating the water up.
Yeah.
So a lot of people we go and see are actually overdoing the temperature.
Yeah.
So they might be washing everything at 60 degrees. You don't need to do that. That's going to cost you twice as much as if you're washing at 30 degrees.
Yeah.
So the only things really you need to wash at kind of 60 degrees are bed linen and towels, because obviously it kills bacteria at 60 degrees.
Yeah,
so everything else can really go on a lot lower temperature. Things like boiling water in the kettle.
Yeah.
Don't boil as much water.
You don't need
a full kettle just for one cup of tea. You know, so basically just boil kind of what you need. So many.
I know.
But we go all through that when we do the home visit. We'll cover everything off and save money.
Sarah's asking, how can someone book an energy device call with Leap?
Yeah, so I've actually got the telephone number here. Actually, so it's 0800 060, and that's 7567. And you can call the Leap team directly, and they will happily book you a visit. Failing that, if you want to do it yourself, you can go on to applyforleap.org.uk.
Brilliant.
And you can fill in a self-referral. Or failing that, if you wanted to contact Smart NRG online, you're more than welcome to do that at www.smartnrglimited.co.uk, and you can fill in a request.
Lovely. Thank you, Andy, for sharing these valuable insights and tips with us. What we're going to do, I don't think we've got any more questions. I'm just trying to check the system here. No, we haven't. So on that note, is there anything else that you would like to mention that maybe I haven't sort of asked any questions that you might think might be useful for the community of Wolverhampton?
Yes, I mean, obviously we touched on the base, and appliances. Really urge people, if they've got kind of undercount freezers, undercount fridges, fridge freezers, electric cookers. We can't help with gas, air fryers, things like that. Basically, if they've got anything of those appliances that are broken, there's a good chance we may be able to help get replacements. Given the criteria, which is all online, it basically don't kind of struggle with a broken appliance. Give us a shout. We might be able to help you.
Excellent. And what top 3 tips would you like to leave with the residents of Wolverhampton on how they can save energy and money at home?
Okay. Right. So obviously it's summer.
Yes.
Make sure you're switching the dryers off that you got. Yeah. Dry your clothes outside is a good one. Showers instead of baths. Yeah. Generally cheaper. What else would there be? Standby functions. That's got to be the one. And
lovely.
Definitely consider the washing machine tip, because the temperature that's what's costing you the money. Yeah,
and I think for me, it's got to be make sure that all your electrical appliances are switched off. I know my daughter, whether she's charging her phone or not, she still leaves the charger in. And remember, listeners, you are consuming energy, and it is costing you. So that make sure that you shut off all your supplies and by the switch and everything, and make sure nothing is consuming any electric. So a huge thanks to Andy Stevens for joining us today and sharing valuable insights.
You're welcome. Thank you for having me.
You're welcome. Into the important work that he's doing with Leap and Smart NRG Limited to support the households in the West Midlands. And also a big thank you to our listeners as well. for tuning in. So be sure to join me again for another episode of FYI, where I will be continuing to bring you informative discussions and valuable resources. Until then, stay informed, stay empowered, and Assalamu alaikum.